Tennis is not just a sport of serves, rallies, and tiebreaks, but also a game full of strange theories. Some of these are backed by science, some by superstition, and others by patterns that are almost too perfect to ignore. From the thrill of momentum to the conspiracy of court surfaces, these theories might not all be proven, but they make the game much more interesting. In today's video, we're discussing every tennis theory that might actually be true. The first and most talked about tennis theory is the momentum theory. The momentum theory. You see, tennis matches often swing like a pendulum, sometimes in ways that seem almost impossible. In many matches, one player can dominate for a set and a half, and then, suddenly, drop a couple of points that shift the script completely. Suddenly, their confidence drops, their shots lose depth, and the opponent starts looking like a different player altogether. That's where the momentum theory applies, because it suggests that success in tennis isn't always about the technique or fitness alone. Rather, it's also about that exciting wave of belief that can carry a player forward. We've seen this many times. Rafael Nadal, for example, has built a career on refusing to surrender momentum. Even when down a set and a break, he keeps pushing until one breakpoint opportunity opens the door. Once Nadal snatches it, you can feel the match turn in his favor. Djokovic has also mastered the art of stealing momentum, often coming back after 2 sets down in Grand Slams. Science might argue momentum is just an illusion, but for players and fans, it feels very real. On top of that, it can decide matches at the highest level. Another most talked about theory is the Big Three domination theory. The Big Three domination theory. For nearly 2 decades, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic have ruled men's tennis like kings, and no one has dared to challenge them. The Big Three domination theory says that their reign wasn't simply a matter of talent, but a lifetime show of skill, mindset, and timing. Federer set new standards for elegance and shot-making. Nadal brought super athletics and hard work, and Djokovic perfected mental toughness and adaptability. Together, they've collected more than 60 Grand Slam titles, and over the years, analysts say this kind of trio dominance is so rare that future generations may never see it again. Also, this theory suggests the tennis universe came together in their era. Like there were many advancements in fitness, racket technology, and professional coaching, all meeting at the exact time when 3 of the greatest athletes picked up rackets. It may look like a coincidence, but for many, it is not a coincidence. The rivalry of the Big Three with each other kept them very energetic, pushing them to levels no other players could reach. The surface theory. Then comes the much talked about surface theory. It is about the hard courts, clay, and grass. Interestingly, every surface tells a different story. The surface theory says champions are not just born, they are also shaped and supported by where they play. Rafael Nadal is the clearest example. His great topspin and constant grinding made him invincible on clay, winning a whopping 14 French Open titles. On the other hand, Federer's grace and attacking instincts developed on the speed of grass, giving him 8 Wimbledon crowns. Similarly, Djokovic, with his balance and return of serve, became nearly unbeatable on hard courts, especially at the Australian Open. This theory highlights why being versatile is the ultimate symbol of greatness. Some players thrive on one surface but fail on another. Dominic Thiem looked like Nadal's heir on clay but struggled to dominate elsewhere. Pete Sampras ruled Wimbledon but never conquered Roland Garros. In short, this theory argues that true legends are those who adapt their games across all surfaces and still win. The court positioning theory. Then comes the court positioning theory. When a player stands on court is more than just a preference, it's a philosophy. The court positioning theory suggests that hugging the baseline gives you the power to dictate play, while going far behind it gives you time but puts you on defense. Federer made a career out of taking the ball early, robbing opponents of reaction time. Nadal, on the other hand, often retreated meters behind the baseline, using his heavy spin to drag opponents into long, exhausting rallies. Both strategies worked because they matched the player's strengths. Federer's aggressive positioning helped him to finish points quickly while also preserving energy. On the other hand, Nadal's deep court stance helped him defend like no one else and grind opponents into submission. The theory argues that whoever wins the battle of positioning and whoever manages to hold their ground usually wins the match. The first serve percentage theory. After that comes the first serve percentage theory, which claims that maintaining a high first serve percentage, usually around 65 to 70%, is the golden number for success. Why? Because a missed first serve forces forces players to hit a slower second serve, it urges the opponent to attack. If we watch tennis history, then Djokovic, Federer, and Serena Williams often won matches where their first serve percentages were high, even if they didn't hit many aces. On the contrary, when that number dropped, their service games came under fire. That's why a first serve isn't just a weapon, it sets the tone for the point. A powerful and reliable first serve keeps opponents guessing, takes pressure off, and builds rhythm. That's why coaches love this statistic, advising players not just to serve fast, but to serve consistently. The pressure point theory. As many coaches say, tennis isn't won by the total points, it's won by the timing of those points. You see, a player can actually win fewer points overall, but still win the match if they capture the right ones, like break points, set points, and match points. This is the significance of the pressure point theory. For example, take Novak Djokovic. He's widely regarded as the master of pressure points. Time and again, he's faced break points at 30 to 40 only to hit a perfect first serve or a perfect forehand. In the 2019 Wimbledon final against Federer, Djokovic saved 2 championship points and went on to win the title. Numbers may say Federer won more points overall, but Djokovic won the ones that mattered most. This theory tells why tennis is so unforgiving. On one hand, you can play brilliantly for 90% of a match, but on the other, fail at the key 10% and still walk away defeated. The hot hand theory. Then comes the hot hand theory. This theory is borrowed from basketball, but in tennis, it suggests that players sometimes enter a state where everything they touch turns into gold. A series of aces, a run of forehand winners, or a series of perfectly timed volleys, it feels like they can't miss. For example, think of Nick Kyrgios when he's locked in, suddenly hitting outrageous shots with ease, or Andre Agassi in his prime, seeing the ball like a beach ball. Science and analysts often dismiss the hot hand as an illusion and a trick of human perception, but ask any player who's felt it, and they'll swear it's real. They'll tell you there are days when the court feels bigger, the ball slower, and confidence boosts every swing. Then, this theory captures the magic of tennis and the unpredictable energy when a player transforms into a force of nature. The choking theory. We've all seen this theory in practice when a player serving for the match, only to double fault twice and lose everything. This is called the choking theory, which explains how nerves can hijack even the greatest players when the stakes are highest. It's not about skill suddenly disappearing, but it's about the brain not working under pressure. Jana Novotná at Wimbledon 1993 is the classic case. She was on the verge of defeating Steffi Graf, only to fall under the weight of the moment and eventually lose. Serena Williams, one of the greatest champions ever, has also admitted to feeling the choke in big moments. Choking is like tennis's cruelest twist. It reminds us that even world-class athletes are human, vulnerable to pressure like everyone else. The home crowd theory. Another bizarre tennis theory is the home crowd theory. You see, crowds can lift players or crumble them. The home crowd theory suggests that while the roar of home fans can encourage some players, it can suffocate others under pressure. Andy Murray at Wimbledon is a positive example. The British crowd seemed to carry him across the finish line to his 2013 and 2016 titles. But look at French players at Roland Garros. Year after year, many struggled to thrive at their home slam, brought down by the expectation of an entire nation. For some, the noise is like an encouraging dynamic. This theory shows that tennis isn't just played on the court, rather it is played in the mind, and the energy of thousands of people can make or break a performance. The rivalry theory. After that comes the rivalry theory. Some players aren't defined by their trophies, but by the battles on the court they fought. The rivalry theory argues that great players need great rivals to push them further than they'd ever go alone. Federer needed Nadal's consistent power. Nadal needed Djokovic's unbreakable will. Djokovic needed both to refine his game to near perfection. That is the reason these clashes gave us some of the greatest matches in history, like the 2008 Wimbledon final, the 2012 Australian Open epic, and the 2019 Wimbledon showdown. Without these rivalries, some analysts say that their dominance might not have lasted as long. This theory reminds us that tennis greatness is not always built in isolation, but it is also prepared in battle. The 5-set warrior theory. Then there is 5-set warrior theory, which says that some players are simply made for the long version of tennis. You see, Grand Slams are unique because they test players over 5 sets, not 3. They're able to withstand the physical toll and mental pressure longer than anyone else. Let's say Rafael Nadal at Roland Garros, Novak Djokovic at the Australian Open, or even Stan Wawrinka during his slam-winning years. They've all shown that in 5 sets, their game doesn't get dim, it sharpens. Also, statistically, statistics prove that certain players consistently perform better in 5-setters than in shorter formats. This theory suggests it's not just about stamina, but about mentality. The belief that even if you're down 2 sets, you never expect to lose. The age curve theory. Then comes the age curve theory. For decades, the rule of tennis was that players peak somewhere between the ages of 24 and 28. That was the sweet and thrilling age when players are young enough to move like lightning, old enough to have the mental maturity and match experience to handle pressure. After a certain age, decline was considered inevitable. The body slows down, recovery takes longer, and younger athletes start catching up. But come today, the modern era has changed this theory altogether. Novak Djokovic won multiple slams in his mid to late 30 seconds. Rafael Nadal fought through injuries to capture titles deep into his 30 seconds as well. And Serena Williams redefined longevity in women's tennis, competing for major titles at an age when previous champions had retired. The question is, have science, sports medicine, and recovery technology redefined the age curve? Well, it may have or may not. Some experts credit modern fitness routines, nutrition plans, and expert training for long careers. Others say that Djokovic, Nadal, and Serena are generational talents of nature who've shattered expectations. Either way, the age curve theory has been redefined and not erased, but bent by just a few players who refused to fall when the calendar said they should. The racket technology theory. Just think about it for a minute. A wooden racket in the 1,970 seconds weighed more than most computers today and had a little hitting zone. Today, modern graphite and carbon fiber rackets with larger heads, low weight, and strings made for spin. The racket technology theory also says that this evolution has completely reshaped tennis, making rallies longer, strokes heavier, and serves more explosive. You have seen Bjorn Borg or Rod Laver trying to make 20-shot baseline rallies with Rafael Nadal on clay. It's not that the old legends weren't brilliant, yes they were, but the technology has shifted today's game to new heights. Polyester strings allow for amazing topspin, racket head sizes make off-center hits more forgiving, and lighter frames let players swing faster than ever. That's why matches today often turn into hard physical battles instead of the serve and volley duels of the 80s. On top of that, critics argue this technology has tilted the sport too far toward baseline power, killing off variety, while some others say it's simply the natural progression of sport because tools evolve, and athletes evolve with them too. So, one way or the other, racket tech has become one of the hidden forces behind modern dominance. The weather theory. Then comes the weather theory. Every tennis fan knows that heat waves, humidity, and swirling winds often become the fourth player on court. The weather theory believes that conditions change the balance of matches more than people realize. A strong server may suddenly get affected when gusts of wind knock balls off course. A clay court veteran may default in 40°C heat, no matter how good their topspin forehand island. Take the Australian Open, famous for very hard conditions. Players have collapsed mid-match, filled with sweat and gasping for air, as survival sometimes matters more than strategy. Humidity in places like Miami can drain energy and make racket grips slippery. At Wimbledon, a sudden rain delay can shift momentum completely, as players return with fresh legs and a new game plan. The theory also suggests players adapt differently based on where they grew up and where they are good at. Spaniards and South Americans often thrive in scorching heat, while Northern Europeans can struggle in those same conditions. In short, weather doesn't just test skill, rather it exposes weaknesses of endurance, adaptability, and mental toughness. The no coaching theory. Then comes the no coaching theory. You see, in most of tennis history, once players stepped onto the court, they were completely alone. There are no whispered instructions, no timeouts with a coach, no chalk talks. The no coaching theory suggests that tennis was the ultimate test of independence. It is also a gladiator sport where problem solving has to happen within seconds. So, it wasn't just about hitting shots, it was about figuring out strategy under pressure, all by yourself. That's why legends like Pete Sampras, Martina Navratilova, and Roger Federer were regarded as much for their tactical genius as their shot making. They solved hard puzzles and surprises mid-match without help. But in recent years, tennis has softened the rule. Players can now receive some coaching signals or advice during matches, sparking debate. Some of the critics argue this spoils the purity of the sport, shifting the outcome from the athlete's mind to the coach's playbook. On the other hand, supporters say coaching levels the playing field, making matches more strategic and giving fans a deeper look at game plans. So one way or the other, the relaxation of this rule has started to redefine how matches are decided, and not just on raw talent, but on consistent guidance from the box. The luck theory. Last but not least, everyone believes that tennis is all about skill, strategy, and discipline, but luck always gets in the way. The luck theory says that champions aren't only great, but they're also aware of fortune at key moments. A net cord, a bad bounce, a favorable line call, or even a timely rain delay can change the whole game. To give you an example, Roger Federer might have won the 2019 Wimbledon final if just one of his championship points had gone differently. Rafael Nadal's 2012 French Open final was interrupted by rain, giving him time to reset and finally secure the win. Also, Novak Djokovic's career is full of bold calls that could have shifted the match the other way. Of course, luck alone doesn't make a champion, but this theory tells us that behind every slam trophy lies a handful of points where fortune smiled one way instead of the other. And in a sport where margins are small, sometimes destiny is decided by a very small margin. In the end, these tennis theories remind us that the sport is more than just numbers on a scoreboard. It tells us that it's a game of patterns, psychology, and sometimes even luck. While not every theory can be scientifically proven, many of them show the reality of what players and fans witness on the court. Maybe that's why they stick, and they make sense of the unpredictable drama that tennis constantly delivers.